Hello, everybody. I see you. I see some of you are trying to connect to the audio. Mario Aguilar, nice to see you. Tim Carrasco, so nice to see you. Britt, how are you, pal? Nice to see you. And I see Matt Markle and Veronica. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It is a beautiful day outside. And I am going to, no kidding, I'm going to, after this meeting, I'm going to go enjoy one of our parks. It's just too pretty. It's too pretty outside not to do it. So let me tell you why it is that we're gathered here today.
I can't get it any louder.
But before I do that, let's do some housekeeping. Everybody, please put your, press the mute button so that we don't get any feedback from anybody's computers. And then number two, if you have any questions or comments, in the chat section, you'll see a little button that says chat. If you ask your question there, we will get to your question and we'll make sure that Homer or I addresses it while we're talking to you. So many of you have requested that we give you some answers and that we have a meeting about the future of our linear trails. And y'all are curious about our new park projects in District 8. And you know that, parks are a product of the public asking for parks, the councilperson's office pushing those requests, and our parks department working on creating new parks and finishing out parks that are under construction and maintaining the existing parks. And for me, parks are priority. And we've pushed funding every year for more and more park investments in District 8, but also I'm happy to say, parks outside of District 8. And, I've supported the creation of every park that's come in front of us, and they're all very important because, well, quite honestly, it's out of enlightened self-interest, not just because I represent my communities, but because I've got two kids at home who, demand to see all of San Antonio's parks and who really are heavy users. And so I will give you an update as we move on as to where we are with regards to Dan Markson Park, Bamberger Park, UTSA, and the Linear Creekway extensions. But first, let me introduce to you members of my team who are on here. We have Laura Garcia, who is my district director. We got Christian Cortez, who handles our work with, direct interface with neighbors. We've got Bo Anderson on the line. Some of you may recognize Bo. Bo is, handles a little bit of everything, but he's been helping us a lot with communications and policy. Bo is excellent. And then we've also got an excellent team member named Kristen Stubblefield. Kristen is the one of the young ladies that also answers the phone along with Christian to make sure that all of your concerns and calls are handled. We've got today Homer Garcia III, who is our Director of Parks in San Antonio. Welcome, Homer. I'm so happy you're here with us. Homer, you there?
Good afternoon, Councilman, and thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Homer. This is the first time we've ever done a noon event, and the reason we wanted to do it was to accommodate schedules, but also we're recording this, Homer, for posterity. So don't screw it up today, okay? Because it'll be forever recorded. All of your mistakes and promises made. Your feet will be held to the fire. And me too. But more importantly, folks, the reason we're recording this is so that we can post it to social media and so that you can share it with your friends and neighbors in case, in case people are curious about parks. So Homer, what's going on in parks? What keeps you busy in, today, and how's 2020 gone? And what do you got planned? And I know that you've got a presentation for us, so I think I'll just let you take it from here.
Sure, thank you. Well, thank you for the introduction. And I want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about what's keeping us busy, but very front and center for us, items that are going on in District 8. And I think what I'd like to do is answer the councilman's first question. How are things going? How is 2020 treating parks. And I think a lot of us can guess it has been a very challenging time. What has been keeping us busy is really being responsive to the needs of the community and keeping our parks open, our greenway trails. If the one constant, when you really think about it, through the pandemic, from a city service delivery perspective, is we've had our greenway trails open, and I'm sure many people are aware. We took the unprecedented action in working with the city manager's office and in the mayor's office and the rest of council in having parks closed at different points of time throughout the pandemic. Probably the most notable one was Easter weekend. Camping in parks across the city are such a long-standing tradition, but that was really just a few weeks into the pandemic, and the idea was, slowing the spread and kind of curbing that line as much as possible. But when you look at the different points in time where we have literally had park closures, whether it was Easter weekend, 4th of July weekend, Labor Day weekend, we learned very quickly how to do it. But getting back to the one constant, it's been that our trail system has been open. And the beauty that, we all, I think, value and point to in our trail system is it's surrounded and enveloped by nature. And when you think about San Antonio as a metropolitan area, we've got these great outdoor public green spaces that have been a sense of relief for the community throughout the pandemic. So what has kept us busy is really making sure that our parks are open, accessible, clean, functional, especially our trail system. And so what I'll do is I'll go through and hit some of the highlights. And then also joining me today is Brandon Ross. He is our manager over the hike and bike trail system. He is a tremendous asset to our team, a wealth of knowledge, and he's got some, I have him on the call in the event that there may be some questions that I may not have the answers to. And sorry if my screen blanked out, but I'm back on here. So I see what's before me. We've got a couple of great images talking about nature and parks and our trail system of what the community gets to enjoy every time they come out. And so as we look at the next slide, and one of the things that we want to highlight is back to where the councilman started. What is our current trail system look like? What is the future? It's been a front and center in a lot of dialogue, I think, both in the media and certainly council as we've gone through our budget process. Currently, there are, and I'm going to speak specifically to District 8. So, we know across the entire system, we've got 80 miles of hike and bike trails completed. Currently, we've got over 9 miles that are in District 8. There are several other segments that are currently in some form of development, whether it's design or construction. We see in the thumbnail here on the right what the trails in District 8 look like, what the connectivity looks like throughout, and how we can get from really one park to the other. We talked about the solid green line represents our over 9 miles of trails that are out there now, and such a beautiful day. I'm sure they're crowded, but we've got several others that are currently going to be growing and expanding that up north of Eisenhower Park. And so specifically, we have the segment that is just under a mile from Westa to UTSA Boulevard. We're looking forward to that being done here coming out of the holidays in early 2021. There is a 2-mile stretch along Leon from the Rim to Eisenhower Park. And when you think about the timing of how we roll everything out, right? Talk about always kind of keep them wanting more. We come out of the gate with Westa to UTSA Boulevard in early 2021. Then we expect the segment between the Rim and Eisenhower Park to be done in mid 2021. So we kind of continue to see that progress. And then we've got another significant segment that's really going to stretch us out a little bit, and it's from the rim to Raymond Russell Park, again, extending that development of the hike and bike trail system up north along Leon. And so that particular segment is over 1.5 miles long. And so when you add this all up together, we're going to have over 14 miles of hike and bike trail in District 8. And so and what I love about this picture here is you see the connectivity. You can see the development in some dense areas, part of town. And that's why parks, especially in the context of a pandemic, are so critical. It provides that relief. It is a quality of life issue. And not only are we connecting, I think, communities to parks, but we're connecting parks to parks. And when you think about if you wanted to only ride the trails up in District 8, once it's all said and done, just to spend your time in this part of our system, again, over 14 miles will be done. That's a full day of activity. But of course, the larger context of the trail system goes beyond just this. Right now, the sales tax that funds this is all going to be built. It's going to happen. We anticipate that the cap would be reached in the spring of 21, but the production, right, of these trails, that will continue into the calendar year 2022. And so, and then what I think everyone's probably aware of is very recently the Commissioner's Court took a resolution that basically spoke to the River and Creek program. And part of that large program that the county is looking to bring to the community is a continuation of our hike and bike trail system. So, we're going to continue to kind of make sure that we're contributing to the dialogue and keeping progress growing on that front. So that's kind of what it looks like on our Greenway trails at this time. But I'd like to get into a very exciting project that is kind of front and center and we'll see on the next slide. When you talk about 2021 and what are some things that we want to do, we have some high profile projects, and Dan Markson Park is at the very top of that list. And so many people are familiar with the park development. What I want to do is kind of provide an update. I think some have received that in the community at different points in time. And what you can see here is not only where the park is located, but what we're really trying to do is design a park that is for everybody in the community, children of special needs, but even adults as well. And so when we look at the playground that is going to be developed, it's going to have these elements that, regardless of your ability, there's something there for the user to connect to. Early on, we didn't want to shortchange the vision of what this park could be. And so we worked with the council office to provide an update, and we kind of came back to the table with, well, we've got a slightly larger vision. And in order to deliver that vision, we took a little bit more time. And, I want to thank the councilman for his leadership and support, and really the support of the community, because the message we're getting is we want to get it right and not kind of shortchange the vision of what we could achieve in this park. And one of the things that's kind of common, as we see in many projects, there's a budget, you get into actually building it, doing it, and all of a sudden there's some constraints along the way. And we really wanted to try to avoid having to be in a position of what a lot of people will call value engineering, which is really just how do we streamline things, find efficiencies in project delivery. And so our goal is really to develop this park, have it be very user friendly, but also aesthetically pleasing, certainly. And one of the biggest things that was a modification from the original design to what we are thinking of now was including an adult restroom facility with changing stations. And so it's also going to have beautiful landscape. We are a Monarch Champion City, so we've looked at developing a butterfly garden, and then back to the tie-in, right? We talked about not only connecting people to parks, but parks to parks. Well, this will tie into the Maverick Creek Greenway Trail. And so in the context of Dan Markson Park, we're hopeful that we can begin construction in mid of calendar year 2021. And then that would carry us to getting it completed, hopefully by the end of next year, early 2022. And reason for that is, back to wanting to extend the current dollars that are on the table. We have an opportunity to seek grant funding through Texas Park and Wildlife Department. And so that's kind of where we're coming in to make the project whole. So once that application moves forward, the timeline that we would receive notice from Parks and Wildlife would be the spring of 21. And so that kind of sets the stage for everything else. And so in the next slide, you'll kind of get a feel for some of the visual and things that we would expect to see in the park. You see several thumbnails here. The first one that looks like a little house or a little casita, would be effectively the public bathroom in the changing facility. It's not going to look like that. This is just for representation purposes, but the project team was looking at several things that are already on the market that are easy to kind of come and bring in. But it gives you kind of an idea of the size and something that, we want to make sure meets the needs of the community. A lot of thought has gone into the playground equipment. And so you see some images there of different ways for people of all needs to access it. And one of the coolest things that I like is when we were looking at the playground, the ability to add some sensory panels, because it may not be about physical ability, but some other way to connect with someone who may not be interested on getting on a swing set or a merry-go-round. So again, this was an example of where we've tried to extend the project to be just more inclusive. And then separate from all of that, there's going to be some great green space, an amphitheater where if somebody just wants to go and read a book, or on a beautiful day like this, watch the birds or listen to the birds or just look up at the sky, there'll be plenty of space there in the park to do just that. So really, really excited. This is one of our priority projects that we're looking forward to bringing to life for the community. And then on our next slide is another kind of here and now type project versus something that's going to take us out a little bit more like Dan Markson Park. Fox Park, we know that is part of the bond project that Public Works delivers on behalf of the city of San Antonio. We do work very closely with Public Works. They're a large department, we're a large department, but we have an army of people that work great together. The project manager on this one actually used to be in the Parks Department. So again, a lot of synergy, historical knowledge there. And so at Fox Park, we're looking at a couple of dog park areas, parking, of course. Site amenities are always critical, water fountains, and looking at wanting to deliver, in addition to just the park itself, a trail connection from the new park area, of course, to the parking lot. And we're not at the point yet of getting to council to award a construction contract. We're still working through design and getting the construction documents to a point that we can actually then put it on the street for to accept bids. So we anticipate that that would be happening really soon, with a construction timeline, hopefully in early 2021, getting us through mid-calendar year of next year. So, you see a lot of synergy and things happening in District 8, quite possibly a lot of things opening in the calendar year 2021 in District 8, whether it's a trail segment, a very high profile and much needed park that engages everyone regardless of your ability. And then, equally important, smaller projects, because, back to the bond, that is a covenant with the voters. And these projects were on there for a reason. and they were supported by the public for a reason. And we don't take that call to action and take that duty lightly. So we're really excited about where things are going. And these are all things that we're keeping moving. So back to what's keeping us busy. This is the other half of the behind the scenes stuff that our project team is working on to just move forward on some level. And then I think that may be our last slide. Is that correct? I think so. And so I know I did a lot of talking.
Thank you. Thank you, Homer. That was excellent.
Yep.
And first and foremost, what I'd like to do is ask my team to see if we can take down that presentation so we can see our faces. Perfect. And so I did want to mention that the Dan Markson Park, the genesis of that was Gil Garza, who's on this call, and his homeowners association. I don't know how, but for some reason they had land left over after the entire neighborhood had been developed, and they came to us and said, we want to donate this land so that we create a park, but in particular for kids with special needs. And we jumped at the opportunity because nobody ever just comes and donates land for those kinds of purposes. And this is so exciting. And Gil has been tremendously helpful in guiding us as far as his vision for this park. But we had a gentleman die last year named Dan Markson. Dan Markson was a philanthropist here in San Antonio who was very, very dedicated to children's charities and just one of the sweetest guys. And he left behind a little boy. And we decided that little boy needed to, in the future, grow up seeing a physical representation of his father's dedication to his community. And so we decided to name this park after him, and City Council just unanimously approved that. And so we're really excited about that. Thank you. Homer, we got some questions. And the first one comes from Matt Markle. Thank you, Matt, for asking a question. It says on slide 1, 2 questions. Has any thought been given to extending the Raymond Russell trail or the Raymond Russell extension even further up I-10 along the old railroad bed into Leon Springs, and even along Leon Springs or Leon Creek to link to the scenic loop?
Yes, and so the short answer is yes. There has been thoughts and discussions about how we could extend the beyond north, just along I-10, just as you mentioned. I'm going to ask Brandon Ross. He has been part of various discussions at points in time to chime in. I know there was specific reference to the rail, and so I'll ask Brandon if he could speak to that.
Okay.
Sure. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so we were approached actually by the Dominion HOA as early as 2 or 3 years ago, asking us about that connection because they were so interested in connecting their community into the Leon Creek Greenway system. And so since that time, we've started mapping it and kind of trying to understand the area a little bit better. And so yes, we're working on that. We don't have any funds for it yet, really the design or the construction of it, but I think it's going to be one that is going to be a very popular connection when we get to the point where we do have future funds that we can allocate for those kinds of things. And we've continued dialogue actually, with the Dominion because of the fact that, it would pretty much go in front of their entrance. It would be right there near their entrance. And yes, it's very likely that it would go on the old red rail bed that's there. That area was cleared recently by saws for a project that went basically right parallel with the access road up I-10. And so it really makes for a perfect trail corridor if we can work our way into that space. Now, I can't really make any promises at this point as far as commitments and exact information about it yet, but I just know that we're looking in that direction and trying to plan as much as we can at this point, knowing that it's going to be something that we're looking at more closely in the future.
Thank you, Brandon. And then Mr. Markle follows up with, what is the status of Rancho Diana and the plan to link that to other parks?
So Rancho Diana, there has been various opportunities actually through our Conservation Advisory Board. So when we talk about kind of linkage, there has some property owners that may or may not be interested in participating in the city's Edwards Aquifer Protection Program. That's significant because depending on where those acquisitions occur, it may lend itself to some of that connectivity. Currently there is not anything like in the pipeline that we would see roll out in terms of that connectivity happening, other than what would effectively expand Rancho Diana should those acquisitions come to reality. Kind of similar to what we did with Eisenhower Park. In that particular instance, a year ago almost, it was last November, that was critical because that acquisition effectively extended Eisenhower Park and then connected Salado, North Salado and Leon. So kind of think about that ring, that makes that happen. We're looking forward and for opportunities to how to provide that connectivity up to Rancho as well, but nothing's imminent.
Great, thanks for those questions, Matt. We're going to ask a question submitted by Mario Aguilar, but first, I want to point out that there's a gentleman on this call who is kind of a mentor to me. He doesn't know it, but he is a mentor to me. Chuck Saxer is on the line, and Chuck is the District 8 representative for our Parks Board and Commission. And we also have Chuck brings a lot of experience to the table because Chuck is also the former chairman of NOD, the Northside Neighborhoods for Organized Development. So Chuck knows more about San Antonio than anybody else, and he brings that vast knowledge to the table. Thank you for your service, Chuck. Mario Aguilar asks, I recall that an overall goal for the city was to increase our park green space so that we would exceed the park space in other communities. How's that going, Homer?
It's progressing. We continue an upward trend. So, probably the closest, I think, metric of that is our 10-minute walk to a park. So when you think back to a year ago, we were at 42% of people lived within 10-minute walk to a park. That was in 2019, up from 38% in 2018. This year, 2020, we did continue that upward trend. We did not have a significant increase like in the prior year. So we're currently at 43%, still going up, and that's what's important, right? We don't want to see that trend come down. And then just the survey data. So the Trust for Public Land collects this and then puts that information out to the public. I just received that survey data from Trust for Public Land about 2 weeks ago. And so we've got a team that is working on it. And one of the things that we're making sure is that the baseline data reflected in that survey is accurate, which really is just kind of a data validation. So separate from just trying to have strategies that as we grow our park system, we close the gap, also making sure that we're validating the data along the way. And so we continue the upward trend and we're excited about that.
Great. Well, listen, folks, I do want to tell you, I think this is top secret news, so don't tell anybody. I do want to share with you that the mayor and I have been talking about what the next bond initiatives look like. Every few years, the city comes out with bond proposals, and these are all chosen by you and your neighbors. And we are thinking that this next bond proposal will be the most parks heavy bond proposal in the history of San Antonio. And I think that we're finally going to make the kind of investment that all of San Antonio wants. That makes Homer smile because Homer, that's job security for you, but don't smile too hard, man. We're going to put you to work, but really we're going to present to the community an option to make a mega investment in San Antonio's parks. And I'm excited about that. Okay, that was a good question. Thank you, Mario. Britt asks, will there be interpretive signage for the pollinator garden that you mentioned earlier And if so, can we suggest some ideas as to what information is provided? Homer.
Yes, I think signage is important. So an overall interpretive signage package is part of the plan development for the park. Definitely would welcome that input. Back to again, pollinator gardens. I think they are important, just system wide, period. But when we think back to just the commitment the city has made, I mentioned we are a monarch champion city, so those things are important, and we need to, have everyone help understand why. So if there are suggestions there, we would love to receive that and let us know, and we will incorporate that into the plans as we look ahead to development.
Thank you, Homer. And folks, I'm an avid bird watcher, along with one of our District 8 heroes, Calvin Finch. Best last name ever. Calvin Finch also writes an article in from time to time in the Express News about birds and pollinators and really the only reason I subscribe to the Express News is so I can read Calvin's articles. But Monica Mackley here in San Antonio and folks like Calvin and Homer's team, they've worked really, really hard to make us a city of excellence and distinction when it comes to pollinators and protection of pollinators. You know that monarch butterflies fly through San Antonio on their way for their vacation in Mexico every year, near Mexico City, and then they fly through here again. That is a very important route, and they consider San Antonio as a pit stop, as a filling station. And we need to make sure that we've got plenty of milkweed and plenty of lantanas and plenty of flowers that these pollinators enjoy, because without pollinators, well, disaster that way lies. And so thank you, Homer, for being so dedicated and continuing that mission. And Matt Markle, we've got a question from Matt also, but first I want to recognize a gentleman named Jim Reed. Jim is also a hero of District 8. Jim is heading up the Medical Center Foundation, and they're doing a lot of work down there. And Jim, I know, has, not just providing space for doctors and nurses to do what they need to do, but, this is a live, work, play environment down there in the medical center. And, Jim is asking a question about what it is that we are planning as far as connecting to the South Texas Medical Center to the trail network. Homer, have you guys been working on that?
Yes, and it's in bits and pieces, and I wish we had kind of a visual, but and I'm going to give kind of an overarching, set the stage, and ask Brandon to chime in. But the short answer is yes. When you look at our trail system, depending on some maybe variations of map you've seen, it looks like there's this big hole right where Leon Valley's at. And the reality is it's not the case. I mean, Leon Valley does have plans to connect to the hike and bike trail system. And as we think through the development of that, and I don't know if that's happening in 2 or 3 phases, but that is something that they are working towards. And that is a critical piece that would then bring us through closer to making that connection to the medical center a reality. So, but let me pause there, and I'll ask Brandon if he has maybe some specifics or anything that he can add to that.
Yeah, so Homer, as you pointed out, the city of Leon Valley basically lies between the Leon system and the medical center. The good news is that the city of Leon Valley has started the process of planning and even constructing those trails that will go along Heebner Creek, which is basically what links up the medical center with the rest of the Leon Creek Greenway system. So Heebner Creek is a tributary that flows into Leon Creek. It goes through the city of Leon Valley. They have a large city park in Leon Valley that's on that creek. And I've been speaking back and forth with them for years about plans for that. The first phase of their construction is going to include flood control improvements and a trail that's going to connect up from a trail that we've built on Heebner Creek Greenway north up to Bandera Road approximately. And then they've got a couple more phases there that's going to get them basically through their city that will be done in the future. And then it picks back up with the San Antonio city limits, where we would then continue that construction over to the medical center to make that last piece. Now, these are unfunded segments that we're talking about for the future, but it is on the drawing board.
Thank you for that, Brandon. This call is full of heroes, and I'm really, really happy to mention also that we've got Britt Coleman on the line. And Britt, if I remember correctly, you serve on the board of the Bexar County Audubon Society, which is, to me, it's one of the most important organizations when it comes to nature conservancy and preservation and making sure that we live in a beautiful place. But Britt was instrumental in getting us designated as a bird city, right? That means that we, along with other cities in Texas, have really invested in making sure that San Antonio preserves its richness when it comes to the diversity in birds. So Britt, thank you so much. And Britt mentions that that Homer helped out, and your team helped out with a Bird City Texas certification process. And we, I'm happy to report, have agreed on supporting a resolution recognizing World Migratory Bird Day, which occurs in early May. I am really excited about that. And so I'm going to stop here and remind you folks that it's on each and every one of us to make sure that San Antonio continues to be a bird city. And there's some really easy steps, right? Put out bird feeders with healthy seeds. I like putting out, I have a big nail stuck to a tree, and I put out a daily apple, and I get sort of all sorts of mockingbirds and really pretty birds out there. But feeding the birds is okay. But also bird houses, making sure your windows are bird safe windows, making sure to pick up trash wherever you see it, particularly plastic trash. We don't want birds making nests out of plastic, et cetera, et cetera. If you've got if you want more information about how to, make sure that we are living up to the Texas Bird City expectations, go to the bearaudubon.org. Britt, you happy with that? All right, thumbs up from Britt. All right, Matt Markle, the Greenway system has few equals in the country in terms of size and scope, Homer, and it's truly a San Antonio showpiece. How realistic is it that the full loop or close to it would occur?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to put a percentage on it. I do think it's realistic. And, if we look at history, I think probably, I wasn't involved in the dialogue 2 decades ago when this vision started becoming a reality, but that probably was a question that, was asked then, and look at where we're at now. And it comes back and points to the importance of having a vision, and then moving towards that as a guidepost or a guiding light. The councilman mentioned a few moments ago that it's on all of us, not in the context of trails, but just in the work that we do and the things that we find valuable. So for me, I am generally an optimistic person, but looking at the progress, I would say we're certainly too close to not keeping this in the forefront of priority and trying to push forward. So I would say it is a reality. Looking at history, it is realistic.
Yeah, and so just from from policy point of view, as far as what's happening at City Council, there is no City Council member right now who is not committed to closing these loops and making sure that the linear trails get funded. Again, one day I'll be long gone, right? But my grandkids, it is my plan that my grandkids be able to cycle all the way around San Antonio and end up at the same place that they started. I think that San Antonio can and should do that. You're right, Tim. This is a jewel. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right, Matt. Now, Matt also says, that would be an amazing centerpiece to host a cycling event like the Grand Fondo, which brings money and tourism into the city. And so, Homer, to what extent do you work on cycling, as part of the parks plan?
So specific, I think the hike and bike trail system is just that. It is a multi-use system. So I think from a development standpoint, we make sure that we're continuing that. And in fact, I was just talking to Brandon earlier today. We're starting to see some segments where we're going from 10-foot to 12-foot wide trails. I think there's a reason for that. It's because of the popularity. We're seeing more use, and as we are becoming more and emerging more of a biking community, that's important to do. So I think the answer to the question is one, looking at that use and then accommodating that in our plans and how we kind of roll out future projects, but even in the context of our partnerships. So Jeff Jordan with Storm, South Texas Off-Road Mountain Bikers, he's almost at every Parks Board meeting. He's been a great partner in developing trails at McAllister Park and at Pearsall. I mean, they're a wide network, and so they're in a lot of places. But it's working with our partners as well, because where the city maybe doesn't have the opportunity to work on that particular passion project, it's important that we help our partners be successful because they just enhance and improve our system. So making sure design is appropriate, making sure we're including the right partners in what we do to help extend and leverage amenities that we offer. And then also, lastly, we have a very focused trail etiquette program. And the etiquette is not just aimed at cyclists. It's not just aimed at pedestrians, but everyone. And so that they know how to use our trails in a safe way that's enjoyable for all. So I say those are probably just three primary ways that we look at being responsive to cycling initiatives in the community.
So when it comes to cycling, folks, it is daily that my wife and my kids and I daily, and sometimes more than once, we go out on the trails hiking, but every day we cycle it. An interesting phenomenon, this COVID crisis has resulted in almost everybody out there rushing to the bike shops and cleaning the bike shops out of bikes and and bike racks. I know this because I recently went out to go buy a bike rack and I couldn't find a single one that fit my car, and I had to order one from California. I go out every day, and particularly I go out on my mountain bike. And for those of you that don't know this, I am a heavy user of the mountain bike sort of jumping trails, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the completion of that skills the skills trail on over at at McAllister. And we go to McAllister quite often, and I took my kid out a few months ago, and we got a GoPro camera, and he was holding the GoPro camera, and I said, Max, I'm going to clear some jumps, and I want you to videotape it so you can watch how high I get on my jumps. And folks, I cleared a total of 0 jumps. I fell down so hard. I almost broke my ribs, and I had to go to the emergency room. But God love my son. He never, not once, put the camera down to check on me. He videotaped the whole thing. And so there is video evidence of how horrible a cyclist I am, and how really just a very dedicated cinematographer my son is. And so we'll be posting that later so you guys can see how much air I caught, but I didn't catch any of it attached to my bicycle. I just flew. So, but there's no conversation about bike and hike and trails in San Antonio unless you also mention Bonnie Connor. Bonnie Connor's on this phone call. It's nice to see you, Bonnie. City council members stand on the shoulders of much smarter and much more capable and much more visionary city council members that came before them. And so Bonnie has made it very, very easy for me to step in and help, District 8 develop. But Bonnie has been working long and hard on aquifer issues and making sure that this linear trails program continues to get funded. And I know, Bonnie, this is a very special topic for you in your heart. But folks, don't forget, there is a park in District 8 named Bonnie Connor Park. And it is a lovely park. There's exercise equipment out there. There's a really beautiful shaded gazebo. People use it every night. They've got organized Zumba classes. People bring their dogs out. They play Frisbee golf out there. And so if you haven't checked out Bonnie Connor Park, please do so. Okay, so we do have a question from Mario Aguilar. Should or is the trail system used as part of our economic development package that we share with companies? The answer is yes, Mario. We quite frequently feature this amenity to companies who are looking at San Antonio to bring their new headquarters and significant investment here, because companies now they don't just look at favorable tax rates or good prices on water, land, and energy, but they really are worried about the quality of life for their employees, right? You have high morale and happy employees who produce more and who stick around, less turnover if their community has a healthy bus system, and robust parks programs and lots of things to do. And so we do feature this, and in fact, Visit San Antonio also features it to attract tourism and conventions. And so they've filmed a lot at these at the linear trails because it really is a jewel. All right, and Rebecca Nelson, what kind of bicycle do you recommend for an adult? Depends on the adult, but I will tell you, we bought my dad a cruiser bike at Bicycle Heaven with a very, very low center bar so that you don't have to swing your leg up and risk falling down. My dad is pushing 80, and so we didn't want him falling down just by trying to get on the bike. This allows you to just step in the bike really, really without having to lift your hip and risk losing balance. Cruiser bikes are inexpensive or very expensive, but REI, Bicycle Heaven, you can even find some at Academy. That's a great starter bike, and you see a lot of those bikes on the trails. I do want to go back real quick to talk about parking and lighting, Homer, at our bikes. I know that this is not, parks is not just about providing a space for people to recreate, but you also have to provide safe parking and safe lighting and security. So can you talk a little bit about what we do towards security in our parking lots? And also, can you talk a little bit about, the scope of work for our park police and what they do and what people should know about their park police?
Okay. So when it talks to just safety and I'll answer the park police question last. At the parks department level, I mean, very clearly when we've got a development coming along, a new park, or maybe kind of a retrofit project, we do look at lighting and where we need to make that investment. Part of it is driven by feedback from the community, also maybe just known incidents. So we do, again, I've got a regular monthly check-in with Captain Brady Wise to talk everything and anything that, is something that we need to both be aware of. But it creates a good opportunity to build on the relationship so that we're getting those incident rates, and where we see trends, then maybe we look and we also target in that area. So beyond the design and development, that's kind of what I think feeds where we need to look. But we also have a very popular trail steward program. And the trail stewards primarily are on our hike and bike trail system. But because they do connect to parks, we'll ask them, if you're on your bike and you come to a park, go and kind of take a stroll through there and just be visible. And what the trail stewards do is their way to be visible. And so for someone who maybe does not want to be seen doing something they shouldn't be doing, then that serves as a deterrent. But the trail stewards also provide useful tips on just general points of orientation. They carry water with them. They will carry tools to help repair a flat tire. And each of them has a mobile unit. So when they're out, if there's need for emergency assistance, medical assistance, that's happening immediately. And so they're really equipped to be a quick stopgap measure for any immediate level of need. Of course, if it's an emergency, then they're going to call, whether it's 911 or park police. And they're up and down throughout our entire trail system. We have a variation of that because people, want to volunteer in parks. And so we have a volunteer trail steward program, and they really serve as an extension of what our trail stewards would do. They don't necessarily, most people do have a mobile device. We don't require that you have one to participate and be a volunteer trail steward, but they're there really to, help keep the community safe and be equally visible. And when we see patterns, we do work with park police to say, okay, we're seeing an uptick at this particular trailhead, this parking lot, vehicles being broken into. So, and park police has been responsive to that. And we try our best to have varied schedules, and we do, of when our trail stewards will be out there, because you never know when you may come across one, right? And I think it helps keep the environment as safe as possible. And then park police, they've got their shifts. They have 7-day coverage, and I believe Saturdays it's all hands on deck. So they've got everyone that is in their bike patrol unit out on the trail system. And then the other thing that we also do, and that so everyone knows, we even work with park police to identify report locations for them to make it a little bit easier for their bike patrol to get out onto the trail, as opposed to our trail stewards. So again, several layers there, but it really comes through open dialogue.
Great. Well, I've got 2 more questions for you, and then we're going to put a pin on this because I know everybody's got to get back to work and our lunch hour is almost done here. Question number 1, how's it going with Hardburger Bridge? We have, this is also going to be one of our most important assets in District 8, District 9. And my goal here is that once completed, and those 2 parcels of Hardburger Park are connected, that John Courage will be able to walk up one side, I'll be able to walk on the other, and that we'll be able to have a peace summit on the very top and finally bring peace to District 9 and District 8. And so what are we going to do?
Well, it's come along just great. We're looking forward to it being completed here by the end of the November, right there, beginning early December. We're working very closely with Public Works, Hardburger Park Conservancy in planning for the ribbon cutting and that grand opening. On the park side of the house, very clearly we're excited. I tell many people, I think that particularly in my role, I'm going to be the envy of many parks directors across the state and the nation. So, and what that means is, and my commitment to the Conservancy, and I know Chuck is listening, is we want to take, it's our job to take care of this gift that the public is giving all the citizens in San Antonio, and we don't take that lightly. So we're looking at different programming we can do. Doing a one example would be a kind of like a camera study, so that we not only can track human life that are using the bridge, whether it's for peace summits or whatnot, but also the wildlife and the animals. And so when you think about it, it's connecting both sides of Hardburger Park, but not just for somebody who wants to walk up and over to get from one side to the other, but the wildlife as well. And so that mobility is important. And I think it speaks to the priorities for conservation of nature and public green space. So we're excited to see it coming right along. And I don't know what more I can say, but we're excited.
So I do want to finish off by talking about dog parks. Dog parks are important to a lot of people, and not me. My dog hates every other dog in the world, so we don't even let her see other dogs. But everybody else's dogs are friendly and they need to get out. Talk to us about what goes into maintaining those dog parks, because I know that you guys have to remulch from time to time, and how is it that you determine whether or not to go in and remulch, and what do you want us to know about the work that you guys do on dog
parks? So dog parks, you're right. I mean, the biggest maintenance feature is going to be making sure that the mulch is fresh, and I think the biggest thing is is the use. I mean, what we've started doing, I mean, we've got some areas where we've got large dog park, small dog park, but somebody may think they're 50-pound dog is a small dog, and so they're going to go into the small dog park. So what we've tried to do is work with the community and users of the dog park to understand, what's appropriate size. So an example of that would be, when you go to dog park, you would see, here are all the rules, but nothing beyond that. So we've started introducing signage that has like a visual of, here's what a small dog looks like. Kind of like when you're going to go travel. I don't know if they still have those suitcase images, and is your luggage too big to carry on, and you see the shadow of the luggage. Same concept for dogs, both for large and small. And so we started to roll those out. We do have a dog park ambassador program. And so I think what I'd like for everyone to know is, again, it's being responsive and putting strategies in place that are going to create an environment where people are going to come to a park and have a pleasant experience. And so we have a dog park ambassador program that really educates the public on proper use. It is volunteer driven as well. And then in addition to that, we're looking at rolling out a new signage package at all of our dog parks to provide helpful tips and reminders once you're in the dog park. Because once you walk past the rule sign, people may forget, and I don't remember what was on font that was like that big.
Yeah.
So we're looking at doing something around signage on the inside to help people remind, or as friendly reminders as well.
So I'm not doing my job if I don't also thank Linda Witten from our friends at Feast. Feast is a big partner of ours over at Denman Park. Denman Park is probably one of the best kept secrets in all of San Antonio. Beautiful, beautiful pond out there. There are Egyptian geese. The Feast has the Denman Estate Mansion, which is just a gorgeous. Do something really special for yourselves, folks. If you've never been to Denman, go visit. You'll be amazed. And take a camera with you, because there's the South Korean pagoda that was gifted to us by our sister city in South Korea. And it is just a gorgeous place for pictures. That brings us to an end of what I think to be a really fruitful conversation. We're going to have more questions for you, Homer, as the year progresses. So folks, if you have any questions about parks, send them to me. We'll send them to Homer, and we'll get answers for you every single time. Please remember, we're facing a very, very important election, not just presidential, but also, for your state reps and your senators and your commissioners and all that. So please do what you can to please go vote and be safe. Make sure to drive slowly during construction zones. Days of Vala is almost finished, and I need you guys to keep an eye out for all the people out there wearing orange vests, because we need them to be able to go home to their loved ones also. Thank you, everybody. Have a good week. Thank you, Homer. Appreciate you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a good day, everyone.